All right. Uh, Good morning, good afternoon to some of you. I'm Matthew Gobbato with Mushkatel, Gobbato and Kile, and we have some presenters today from TrueLink. Going to give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to let the presenters take it on. So first, we have Amanda Jenkins, VP of Strategy and Growth with TrueLink. We have Zach Kuhn, who is the Senior AE, and then we also have Peter Wall, who's the Director of Fiduciary Services. Combined, I think they all have over 40 years experience in this industry, and they have an awesome presentation for everybody today, discuss some of the benefits of TrueLink and some of the ways it can be utilized. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the presenters. One thing I'd like, you guys can ask questions. You can plop them in the chat, you can plop them in the Q&A. If there's something pressing, I'll let them go. Otherwise, we're going to try to hold all the questions till the end. So with that, TrueLink reps, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much to Mushkatel, Gobbato, and Kyle for having us. As you all heard, my name's Amanda. Nice to meet you all. I'm on the team here at TrueLink Financial, and we're really excited to be here to share how TrueLink and the financial tools that we offer can really support families like yours in managing special needs trusts and also ABLE accounts. And so today our goal is to give you really just like a clear, easy to digest overview of some of the tools that we have. It'll be a little bit less technical, so not quite, a full demo or a place where we dive into, individual account scenarios, but really wanted to leave you with a bit more familiarity about us and how we offer tools that make your role as trustee and financial caregiver easier. So with that, figured we could start with some brief introductions and just sharing a little bit more about who we are outside of our roles at TrueLink, and then dive into the TrueLink card itself. So what is the card, how it works, why it matters for families, and how it supports them. And we'll also touch briefly on how we work with Arizona ABLE and the Stable account and consortium, and how we support as fiduciary as well. And then we'll leave time, of course, at the end for your questions and yeah. Okay, so joining us today are Zach Keem, Pete Wall, and myself, Amanda Jenkins. Would love to do just a quick round robin for the TrueLink folks on the line, starting with Zach, and wondering if each team member wouldn't mind just sharing who they are. We heard a little bit about your role, but maybe where you're located and maybe a fun fact or hobby, just so folks get to know you a bit more.
Sure, absolutely. I am Zach Keem. Thank you to the team for having us here today. I am currently located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And fun fact or hobby, I'm an avid outdoor and backcountry skier. So that's where I like to spend my winters, even though not something that occurs much in the North Carolina heat.
Thanks, Zach. My name's Peter Wall. I've been with TrueLink about 7 years. Before joining TrueLink, I actually developed and ran a special needs trust and elder law division for a large $80 billion trust bank. So I spent a lot of time actually in Phoenix as a Bank of Arizona was one of our partner banks there. I run the fiduciary services division of TrueLink. What does that mean? Hopefully we'll get to it later. Want to definitely focus on card today though, but we also offer investment management services and reporting software for professional fiduciaries, pooled trust fiduciaries, and most importantly, family member trustees, which can be very, very helpful because as we know in your state, all tax is very particular about how the reporting is done. I also teach and present continuing legal education courses all over the country, including with Matthew's colleague, Emily Kyle, there at his firm. And I'm located in Denver. A fun fact about me, I am a nationally touring and recognized saxophonist. I used to be the saxophonist, for example, for Robbie Krieger, the guitar player for The Doors. So that's what I do in my spare time. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Amanda.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. My name is Amanda Jenkins. I am VP of Card Growth and Strategy here at TrueLink. I've also been at the company for about 7 years, but sort of on the prepaid card side of things. And really my job is all about figuring out how we find more people out in the world who could benefit from TrueLink, and how we get our message across as to how we can help. So excited to be here. located in Washington, D.C. And a fun fact about me, it sounds like I cannot match my colleagues' level of talent in any regard, but I have recently been enjoying getting back into racket sports. As an adult, I hadn't played sports since like, high school maybe. And my recent obsession is paddle. And I'm not sure how common that is in Phoenix, but we actually have no courts in DC. So I'm petitioning someone to like build a court locally. That way I can start to be as talented as my colleagues here. Awesome. Well, thank you for letting us introduce ourselves, and maybe we'll just start by diving in a little bit more about TrueLink and who we are, and then transition over to really hearing more about the card and the details behind it. So TrueLink is a company that specifically exists to provide financial solutions for people with complex needs and those who care for them. And so we specialize in protecting the independence of someone who essentially has someone else supporting them and managing their journey throughout their life. And our story really started when our co-founder, Kai Stinchcomb, was seeing firsthand how financial tools that were in a distance, like regular debit cards and credit cards and bank accounts, really weren't doing the work to protect his grandmother, who was living with dementia. And so that personal experience sort of drove his belief in what became our first product, the TrueLink card that we'll talk about, and also has really driven everything that we've done in the last 13 years and where we are today. And so today we support over 250,000 families and professionals who manage finances on behalf of those in their care. And so specifically some examples of the circumstances our customers face are on the left-hand side, an older adult with maybe a cognitive impairment, such as memory loss, who might be at greater risk of being taken advantage of financially, or just may not remember necessarily that they've spent 75% of their weekly budget or made a purchase a few days ago that they no longer need to repeat again today. Second would be a person with a disability who might need to adhere to stringent rules in order to maintain eligibility for critical services and health insurance, or whose family might be planning and managing funds that will eventually support their lifelong care. And the third common use case, common circumstance, we support a lot of folks who are suffering from a substance abuse or behavioral addiction and who need a bit of extra help on their journey and safeguards and support to be able to still spend independently. Finances are a part of all of our lives, but might just need a few safeguards and speed bumps along the way to sort of keep them on that journey. And then last, of course, we realize that when someone is navigating any of these life circumstances, they often are relying on a series of professionals who are helping them answer critical questions, get the answers they need, put in place things like an S&T. And so those are attorneys, geriatric care managers. You could sort of go down the list of professionals that we work with who are also sort of in this financial caregiving space or very close to it. And so in so many ways, the people that the 250,000 people, right, that we're talking about that we work with here at TrueLink, they're just like us. And so they want to enjoy the little things in life. They want to go on vacations or lunches with their friends, and to be able to save and access money as a tool in doing so. But as mentioned, our customers face really specific life circumstances that mean they might need the help of a family member or a professional to navigate. And so in the case of a special needs trust, the family member or professional serving as trustee, quite honestly, has some real challenges that they're probably navigating, and you all might resonate with. The first is balancing independence and protection. And so trustees really want to make their loved one feel empowered to make purchases independently. At the same time, they have a need to prevent spending that could harm that individual's eligibility for really important things like SSI or Medicaid or whatever the state-based program might be. And so those are things like purchases at charities, right? Rent, maybe cash withdrawals. And so without tools, finding that balance can be a really, really difficult thing and actually forces the trustee into almost a position of like gatekeeping, which is just never a fun place to be and might cause a little bit of stress in relationships. The second is navigating really complex benefits rules. So both the SSA and state benefit programs have really strict and nuanced rules about allowable purchases. And so even well-intentioned spending can sometimes unintentionally count as income or reduce benefits. And that's like a worst case scenario, right? And so even experienced folks sometimes can find these rules overwhelming and sort of tough to navigate without some sort of ongoing guidance. The third key challenge is really around administrative stuff and record keeping, just keeping track of what's happening. Trustees must track essentially every disbursement for SSA, courts or attorneys. And that's a lot of manual processes if you don't have tools helping you do that, right? You're probably saving receipts, you're logging expenses in spreadsheets. Those are time consuming, those are error prone. And incomplete records might cause a little bit of stress when it's time for like an audit or you to submit a report. And then the fourth is just the emotional weight of the role. Sometimes trustees and other sorts of financial caregivers, they are often family members and they're deeply involved in their loved one's care. And so the financial oversight part of that role can cause strain on that, what otherwise would be that familial and loving and supporting relationship when every purchase becomes sort of a point of approval or denial or keeping someone safe. And really folks just really want to find the balance of support and autonomy, which is quite difficult to do. And that's really where TrueLink comes in and helps in multiple ways. So through both our prepaid card and our fiduciary services offerings, we offer a suite of financial tools and services that basically allow the financial caregiver to safeguard, to spend, to provide really thoughtful oversight in a way that's also giving that financial independence and to grow funds if that's a goal as well. So we'll talk more about all of those, but let me transition it over to Zach, who will share a little bit more about that first one, which is our prepaid card.
Well, thank you, Amanda. And again, thank you everybody for having us and joining us here today. So following the overview and just quickly diving in, Amanda, if you can go to the following slide. What is it that the TrueLink Visa card actually is? We are a tool purposely designed for individuals with disabilities and their trustees, and broadly, as Amanda mentioned, essentially streamlining and supporting individuals who are supporting the overall well-being of individuals within their care. How do we structure this tool to make your lives easier? We're able to help you make trust disbursements, all while staying compliant, as Amanda mentioned, in accordance with SSA rules and the P.L.L.C guide more broadly. We're able to do so by setting specific guardrails, for example, blocking access to cash, purchases at any given merchant or specified store, entire spend categories such as charities, and therefore not putting any future benefits in any sort of jeopardy. This can all be done while keeping you fully in the loop through real-time text and email alerting, not only on completed transactions, but any attempted transactions that we've deemed a blocked category. So you can maybe have that conversation with a beneficiary or loved one to better understand what the intent was behind given transaction attempts.
And if I might interject here, Zach, I think, really a lot of times when we're doing this presentation, right, a lot of the audience members are like, this can't be real. This actually can't be true. Where you're able to put, for example, special needs trust funds onto a card for the beneficiary to use. Well, it is true. And as Zach mentioned there, the Social Security rules and the POMS, which stands for the Program Operation Manual System, which doesn't really describe what it actually is, right? It's the regulations that at the federal level, Social Security techs look through to make sure that if beneficiary distributions and spending out of a special needs trust, for example, allow that beneficiary to maintain eligibility for SSI and therefore maintaining eligibility for Medicaid. So there's actually a specific POMS regulation that you can see down there in the really tiny print down at the bottom there, where it actually talks about these administrator managed prepaid debit cards. And as a matter of fact, TrueLink is mentioned by name in that particular section of the POMS. We're the only company to ever be named in the federal POMS regulations and Social Security regulations. But this is how as long as the card is set up correctly, right? And what I mean by that is the card is set up by the trustee. It's owned by the trust or the trustee. It still has the beneficiary name on it. And as long as, as Zach mentioned again, thank you. It's used for categories that wouldn't be disqualifying events, or I should say reduction events for that beneficiary's SSI. And what is that basically now, right? It used to be clothing. You couldn't spend money out of a special needs trust on clothing. That's gone. Food was removed as a restricted category, I believe, last year. Maybe it was late the year before. What we're really talking about now is shelter. So being able to block those shelter purchases so that therefore if the beneficiary spends the money on the card on a shelter expense, or it's blocked, right? Or if they try to, their SSI benefit isn't reduced, potentially dollar for dollar for those purchases. Why did Zach mention charities? Another huge rule of special needs trusts, especially first-party special needs trusts, is that everything out of that trust has to be purchased for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. So charities is a donation, right? Social Security says that's not for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. And we're not going to get into all the nuances there. There's things like collateral benefit, and things like that. But in general, those are the rules. And the TrueLink card is really provided as a way for beneficiaries to be able to make allowable purchases while still maintaining eligibility for SSI. It's also a fantastic tool for Altex, right? I already mentioned for a lot of you on this call, Altex, as you know, is a very, very stringent program there in Arizona. To be honest with you, it's one of the most stringent in the countries. You can use a TrueLink card while on the Altex program. In general, that's been our experience, as long as those funds have been accounted for in that anticipated disbursements form. When you're filling out the annual or whatever the frequency may be for Altex, saying, hey, how much we're going to spend out of the special needs trust and things like that. So as long as pre-approval, through the TrueLink card has been given, in general, you shouldn't have any problems using the TrueLink card. And of course, if there ever is any problems, feel free to contact us. We have a wonderful customer service team. But also, for a question that specific, we're going to refer you right back to Matthew and his team, right? Who know this stuff, Arizona specific, do it day in and day out, and quite frankly, are experts in it. Zach, apologies for the interruption.
All okay, Pete. Thank you for the added clarity there. So moving along, each TrueLink account comes with two unique user experiences. One as the card administrator, or the trustee in this case, who essentially manages all of the spending. What does that mean? They can send money to the Visa card itself. They'll be able to configure the spend settings, as Pete just mentioned, so that they're in accordance with the trust. They're able to monitor all transactions and then pull future reporting should that ever be necessary. The second experience is that as the beneficiary, allowing the beneficiary to spend independently only as allowed by the card settings that have been set forth by the administrator and trustee. They can easily check their balance, review their transaction history, very similar to a bank statement, even contact the support team that Pete was mentioning as needed when things or problems may arise. Next slide, please. So what does this actually look like in practice, and how do we disperse funds to help protect those benefits? As the trustee, you have the ability to order a Visa card. Of course, you can fund it, as Pete was mentioning, directly from the trust, and you can customize the settings to provide the right amount of protections for the individual beneficiary, all while affording that sense of independence for the beneficiary themselves. On the right-hand side of the screen here, we give you just a very brief sneak peek as to what some of these spend controls and guardrails might actually look like. We can block all access to cash. We can set specific transaction limits for each individual beneficiary. We can even go down to all the way to the merchant level to allow or exclude specific merchants so that every expenditure falls in line with the terms set forth in your given trust. All of this is ultimately put in place to empower the beneficiary with a sense of financial freedom. While the cardholder spends, TrueLink is automatically going to approve transactions that are expected per the Visa card spend settings and automatically block those transactions that are not. Ultimately, at the end of the day, giving you as trustee peace of mind while giving independence to the ultimate beneficiary who's utilizing the card. As we've mentioned briefly, we can also help maintain auditable records for any future-proof state. Trustees have real-time visibility that we've mentioned so far, so you can get in-moment alerts both via text or email as transactions or blocked transactions may occur. And you can also generate reporting or statements for use during audits, court reporting, reconciliations, and so on. We have essentially two easy to use tools. We have a web browser application along with a mobile app, and these tools are there to help give cardholders visibility and multiple ways of accessing our customer support team via the website, via the mobile application, also the ability to call in should they ever need real-time assistance. And we offer East Coast to West Coast business hours, 7 days a week, so your team can be fully supported and your beneficiaries are supported as well. Lastly, I won't go through and read all of these as we'll share this presentation afterwards and you can read them at your own leisure and as you wish. But we'll just take a quick look as to what Sarah had to say regarding her TrueLink experience. And she states that I manage a TrueLink card for my sister who has special needs. And this allows me to give her the freedom to spend money as she chooses without needing me to be involved in the day-to-day. I've been recommending your product to everyone who will listen. And we have thousands upon thousands of these stories that we'd be willing to share if you need some extra light reading in the days to come.
Yeah, and I think this is an important slide. It really sort of illustrates, Zach, the number of use cases for a TrueLink card. It's not only just for beneficiaries. I'll tell this anecdotal story. The very first, because I was a TrueLink customer before I was a TrueLink employee. The very first TrueLink cards I ever ordered, I was working with an ultra high net worth family, and they needed a solution wherein they could give their kitchen staff, must be nice, right? But their kitchen staff, a prepaid debit card where they could restrict access to cash, because what they were finding is that when the grocery shopping was happening, on a traditional debit card, cash back was being taken as well. So that was a fantastic, opportunity to introduce them to TrueLink, but also you can imagine the myriad of uses that, that a TrueLink card can be used for. I have one for my 16-year-old daughter. As a matter of fact, certainly don't have the amount of restrictions because she's not on public benefits that, some card users may experience, but I get an alert every day. She's in high school. She just went back today. I want to know kind of, where she's at, where she's eating lunch. So I'm not joking. 30 minutes ago, I got an alert that said that she spent some money on her TrueLink card at Chipotle. So there's just wonderful uses, including that of the actual trustee, right? So if the trustee has the need to make purchases for the beneficiary and doesn't want to put it on their own credit card, for example, and then being reimbursed for the trust, because that's just an extra step to have to explain to Altex or Arizona Medicaid or, Social Security, what have you, the cards can be used for trustees, for professional guardians, for caregivers, for things of that nature, to really offer really, really robust reporting functionality and stay compliant with those public benefits rules. Sorry for interrupting again, guys.
And Pete, I just want to chime in here for just one second. I think your point to having trustees use it, it's a huge benefit. One, some of the biggest advice we give clients is never to commingle funds. And even if you're not intending to, you're going to have to jump through other hoops to try to explain, well, I did use my money. Here's a receipt for my, bank account showing I used it. Here's reimbursement. So it makes the trustee's job just so much easier to be able to access that money, use it for that one account. And then when it comes time to account, I only have to look at this TrueLink card and the statements there to show, hey, these were all the transactions and all of my stuff is completely separate. So I just wanted to highlight that I think that's a huge benefit for a trustee to have.
I really appreciate that. Thanks for that interjection. Also, let's talk a little bit about fraud prevention, right? It's a prepaid debit card. So If as trustees you're worried about, well, I don't want my beneficiary, for example, to have access to the entire trust corpus, or, the trustee or the caregiver or whatnot, all controllable, right? It's only what you load onto the card. It doesn't directly link, although we do offer investment management and things, it does not directly link to those accounts. It actually has to be funded with a certain dollar amount to give you that extra fraud prevention control. And then, of course, we do have fraud prevention services and things like that that can assist should that ever happen. But you're not putting it's not linked. Sometimes we forget to mention that on our end, that it's not linked directly to the funding account. It's only what you put on the card. So sorry again, Zach and Amanda.
No, don't apologize.
Do
These are all
5
great.
more times. Yeah.
No. And Pete, your last point is making me think too about the different ways in which folks use the card. And we'll talk about how cards are used with ABLE accounts in a moment. But even before that, worth mentioning, so Pete mentioned sort of different types of financial caregivers that use the card. One use case within that we hear a lot about is really just as like a life skills builder. So we're talking about all the benefits in terms of like compliance and different ways in which it improves the relationship. But so many folks actually end up using our card, and some of the mechanisms we're talking about in terms of you don't have to put the whole $20,000 on the account on day one, right? You can control how much goes on it. You can sort of work with the beneficiary to set up a budget, almost use it to have conversations one-on-one that then end up leading, Pete, you're probably doing this with your daughter, end up leading to some great things as well. So. And speaking of another use case, wanted to spend a minute talking about the ways in which we work with ABLE accounts and provide cards. And excitedly, in the state of Arizona, we have a direct relationship, and happy to share more. So in addition to the work we do to support families and professionals directly with the TrueLink card and some of the fiduciary services stuff that Pete will talk about in a second, we're also really proud to be the prepaid card provider for approximately half of the nation's state ABLE programs. And through our partnership with Stable Account, AZ ABLE plan participants have the option to utilize our same reloadable card. So it's really all the same benefits that Pete and Zach were just showing us around the TrueLink card, with the addition of some I'll point out in a second. But they can basically, so if you have a ABLE account open, you have the opportunity to order a reloadable prepaid card that is purely just attached to that ABLE account. And to Matthew's point about not commingling funds, we do keep them separate, right? And so it's only the ABLE account funds that can land on that stable card. But if folks basically are saving in an ABLE account and want to provide a way for the beneficiary or even the authorized legal representative to basically be able to spend and make everyday purchases using some of those savings, the card is a great way to do that. And so this is, of course, optional for anyone with an Arizona ABLE account. And it's very similar, as mentioned, to our classic TrueLink card. So it has all the benefits that we've been mentioning. The few additional benefits I'll mention that are specifically built for the ABLE use case and that you'll see on this type of card are the ability to mark a transaction as a qualified disability expense, or a QDE. This is great for record keeping purposes. It basically makes it so that you can pull a report, let's say at the end of the year or on any time frame you want, that says, here are the things that, basically the ways of which the account funds were spent. And you can say, like, specifically, this was a qualified disability expense. You can also actually write in a note or a memo as to what that expense exactly was and attach a receipt. So full record keeping, full capabilities in terms of that same spending monitor and being able to determine merchant categories where you'd like funds to be used or not used, specific merchants, specific amounts. And so really just a flexible tool that folks find they like using if they want to spend the funds in their ABLE account. And should mention also that in an ABLE context, so Pete was mentioning this a little bit with our traditional TrueLink cards. It's also true in an ABLE context that anyone can use the card. So if you're serving as the authorized legal representative, the ALR, you can order a card. let's say you have the need to make purchases on behalf of the beneficiary, like a large purchase, like for a mattress or something like that, you can order a card for yourself and actually use the card to do that. The beneficiary can order a card that they self-administer, if that's the right situation, or the ALR can order a card that is used with the beneficiary as the card holder, and sort of have those like that one account, two experiences thing that we mentioned. I'll spend a minute just talking about how to get started with stable cards in case anyone's interested or has an existing stable account out there. It's a little bit different from our normal path if you're signing up for TrueLink cards, so figured I'd mention here so that you all have the very latest info. So basically, if you have an AZ-able account, you're most likely managing that account through the program manager Vestwell's website. So basically, you'd go to the same place that you do every day to manage that account. And once that account is set up, you will find on your homepage a little tile that allows you, basically advertises the prepaid card, and allows you to click it and get started and order a card. That comes through straight to us at TrueLink. We place the card order for you, and in the back end, we link that to the specific ABLE account so that there's no commingling of funds. There's no way to get sort of funds from an outside source on that card. And from there, you can really you'll see the stable card as an option. Basically, when you go into your stable account to withdraw funds, you'll have many choices and the ways in which you withdraw those funds. So you can issue a check, you can send it to a bank account, et cetera, et cetera. The stable card will appear as one. So if you select the stable card and say, I want to send $100 there, that'll initiate the transfer and the funds will land on the card. And of course, that card can be used anywhere that Visa debit cards are accepted. So really flexible tool, and folks tell us that it ends up being a wonderful supplement to the savings that they're doing in that specific account.
Couple things, Amanda. A couple questions here. Angela asks, do you offer the ABLE accounts or just the stable card? We only offer the stable card. As Amanda mentioned, right, Vestwell does the ABLE accounts there in Arizona. Of note, let's imagine you're in a situation, you're in a family situation where you live in Arizona, beneficiary lives in Arizona, the beneficiary of the ABLE account. You don't want to necessarily, you don't have the need or what have you to open an Arizona ABLE account, but grandma and grandpa live in, let's say, Colorado, what have you. You can open a ABLE account in any state. In other words, you don't have to you don't have to open an ABLE account in the state in which the beneficiary resides. And this can be very attractive to grandma and grandpa, for example, as Colorado, and I actually don't know the rules, but there are some states that offer an income tax break for funding an ABLE account, similar to funding a qualified tuition program or a traditional 529 college savings plan. So you can find those different programs if the situation dictates as such. And thank you, Brittany, for posting the Arizona ABLE login there in the chat. Also, Stephanie, yes, we will be sharing this presentation later. And Brittany also says another great resource is abletoday.org. I really like the ABLE National Resource Center, which is ABLE nrc.org, if I'm not mistaken, and they actually have a chart that shows the different investment options, the fees, and things like that, so you can compare state by state. Anita asks, can funds in the stable account be used to pay another credit card? Let's talk about that for a second, if you don't mind. ABLE accounts are supposed to only be spent on what's called qualified disability expenses, or QDEs. If they are not spent on qualified disability expenses, then they're potentially there's a potential penalty, potential inclusion on an income tax return, et cetera, et cetera. What is a QDE? Let me start with the easier answer. What isn't a QDE? And I don't have an answer to that, because qualified disability expenses lists everything under the sun, including shelter and quote unquote basic living expenses. So if you're thinking about using an ABLE account, another point is that you can really use it very, very well with a special needs trust. So remember how I said that you can't spend funds on shelter? It's called an in-kind support and maintenance, or ISM. Reduction, potentially dollar for dollar, reduction in that beneficiary's SSI. If, for example, you pay rent out of the S&T beneficiary's special needs trust. Well, instead, can you transfer money from the special needs trust to enable card or enable account and then pay rent, because you are able to pay for shelter expenses out of an able account without any potential reduction to a beneficiary's public benefit? And the answer is yes, you can. And it sounds like legal money laundering, and it kind of is, but guess what? Everybody knows about it. So Social Security knows about it, and they have their own rules and regulations around it in the Palms. But the ABLE accounts are run by the Department of the Treasury, or the IRS, quite frankly. And the IRS has always been super duper friendly to people with disabilities. For example, treating a first party special needs trust like a grantor trust. In other words, all events taxed at the beneficiary level, which is generally very, very low. The new provisions under the Secure Act 2.0 to stretch an inherited IRA required minimum distributions over the beneficiary's lifetime. Very, very friendly to people with disabilities. And then this ABLE program, which is IRC Section 529A. So it's just like a qualified tuition program, college invest program, what have you. Again, very, very friendly to people with disabilities. So the answer, that was a really long way, Anita, of saying, I don't see why you couldn't pay another credit card off through a ABLE account or a stable account, whatever you want to call it.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete, and thanks, Brittany. Brittany is the executive director of Arizona ABLE, and so we're lucky to have her on the line. Know her office is a wonderful resource as well. So thank you so much for sharing those resources in the chat. Lovely. Okay. Well, next, Pete, do you want to talk a little bit about fiduciary services?
I'd be delighted to. And you guys feel free to interject on my part whenever you want.
Yeah, sounds great. No, yeah. We loved it. Thank you.
So for those of you who are family member trustees, professional fiduciaries in Arizona, pooled trust administrators, we work very closely with the Plan of Arizona there in your state, as well as some other national pooled trusts that are based right there in your state, Secured Futures and Good Shepherd Fund. And we do it in a sort of a holistic manner. As Amanda and Zach, were mentioning, we were founded on the belief that people with disabilities in particular, deserve the same high quality financial services that I think a lot of us take for granted. And I think, working in this industry, whether you're, a drafting attorney, whether you're a caregiver, a parent, a guardian or a professional fiduciary or trustee, I think we're kind of blessed. And I say that because I think, people with disabilities are probably one of the most underserved, but one of the potentially most deserving populations in this country. And so as a natural extension of that, we also started this fiduciary services division 7 years ago when I made the jump and came online. And what does that mean? So we offer investment management services that are specifically tailored. Can we go back, please? That are specifically tailored to the Uniform Prudent Investor Act or the laws or regulations that govern fiduciaries in your state. We have very, very broad special needs trust experience, not only in some of the legal aspects. Again, in all cases, if there are legal questions, we refer you right back to your drafting attorney if you're a family member trustee. But very deep knowledge on taxation of special needs trust and investment management and things of that nature. I think our dedication to people with disabilities really shines through. And then we also offer this trust administration platform that really takes a lot of that back office burden and the reporting stuff off of your shoulders, especially as a family member trustee, so that you can do what you do best, which is taking care of your loved one with a disability. So right now, as we move forward, we do specialize in working with pooled special needs trusts and private fiduciaries all over the country and family member trustees. We currently manage $1.8 billion, and that's we're not small. And we currently help service over 27,000 people with disabilities all over the country. Of note, when we're looking at that, one of the big problems I had, and I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth here, but one of the problems I had with larger financial institutions was the fact that, and I understand that the need to provide shareholders with returns. But one of the biggest things that I always had a problem with was if I had a relationship with an attorney or a family member or things like that, or I just wanted to help a person with a disability, all of a sudden there were account minimum fees or account minimum sizes. And so one of the very first things we did when we founded this division was make sure we don't have any minimum account sizes, and we don't have any account minimum fees. We want to be able to help everyone. And again, it really anchors back to that. We really do want to help, every single beneficiary that we can. Moving on to the next slide, as part of our wraparound services, I'll call them, really a holistic approach. So we act as investment advisor and do the portfolio management tailored specifically to that beneficiary situation. What does that mean? It could be a beneficiary that's in spend down, right? And that's very, very different than from traditional investment management. Traditional investment management is institutional investment management is, hey, Pete, you've got this much money, you need to save this much into retirement. How much can we do, right? How much can we put in? How much are we going to generate each month? And then set a flight plan for that, after retirement. Well, our clients and our beneficiaries and people with disabilities aren't necessarily in that bucket, right? They're, potentially due to their disability, not working, not able to save more money. Maybe all of this money came from an inheritance or a personal injury award or a medical malpractice award, and they've got this much money and we want to make it last as long as possible. It's a very, very different flight path and a very, very nuanced operating environment. And the taxation rules are different, especially in third-party trusts, trust funded by people other than the person with disability, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, through inheritance. Those taxation rules get very, very difficult, and you can't just set it at okay, we're going to realize 5 to 8% in capital gains per year and call it good, because trust tax rates are so much higher than they are than personal tax rates. We obviously have multiple portfolio options that are tailored to that beneficiary specific situation. We're not going to be putting a 6-year-old beneficiary who doesn't need to use their trust in the same portfolio that an 80-year-old beneficiary with, needs to be drawing on the account. That just doesn't make sense. And then, we do keep all of our assets at a third-party financial institution, qualified custodian. We use Schwab. Charles Schwab is the largest custodian for registered investment advisors in the world. And all of the assets are obviously titled in the name of the trust, in the name of the beneficiary. So God forbid anything happens to TrueLink, you have that extra blanket of security of having it at the largest registered investment advisory custodian in the world. We also have a trust administration platform that does daily trust accounting for you. Lots of customizable downloadable reports. So you need to report on a conservatorship. Hey, I spent, 5 different times, $30 each at Verizon, what have you. You can, download reports that categorizes that, shows you where the money was spent, and then it's a cut and paste into the court form, for example, and adding totals and things like that. For our professional trustees, we'll calculate and process all your fees. For any of our clients that do use the investment management services of TrueLink, we do offer the TrueLink prepaid card with instant funding at no cost. So generally, and that was something we didn't mention during the card presentation, but our full-fledged card, right now is about $12, is exactly $12 a month. But that fee gets waived for any of our investment management. For any of our investment management clients. And then we do have, dedicated relationship management and I think what really sets us apart is our breadth and depth of knowledge in this particular field. So as we look at the next slide, here's just some screenshots for the trust administration platform. As I said, just a multitude of reports. So you want to know how much you spent at Walmart, right, out of the trust over a certain time period, how much your beneficiary is spending, per month on the TrueLink card and the distributions. And then we're actually able to run, not too dissimilar from traditional investment managers, but it's more nuanced in that we account for, medical supply inflationary rates instead of traditional CPI rates and things like that. So it gets a little nuanced, and then show you how long the trust is going to last, right? A fantastic tool. Let's imagine you're a family member trustee and your son, daughter, niece, nephew, what have you, is just kind of spending at a unsustainable rate. We're able to produce reports that run simulations based on based on historical spending and assuming certain standard deviation of investment return rates and things like that, and show, gosh, at this rate of spending, your trust is going to only last 5 years. But if we just knock $500 a month out of your monthly budget, look, we can make it last for 12 years or whatever the projections may say. Lots of accounting. We produce our own statements, so it doesn't look like a traditional statement. A traditional investment management or checking account statement is going to say check number 123 for $500 presented on this date, right? Our statements are very much more detailed if you use our platform, insofar as they'll say check number 123 payable to Walmart for household supplies for this dollar amount. And that really saves courts, Medicaid, Alltechs really appreciate that extra level of detail, and could potentially prevent you from having to answer some silly questions from a Medicaid tech or something like that down the road. We also do all of your check processing and distribution processing, and there's no additional charge for the use of any of these services on our platform. We do charge if you want to overnight a check or second day air a check, but those are the only other charges. And you're able to do budgeting, and we print and mail checks, right? At no additional charge except those two caveats that I mentioned there. And then, like I said, that TrueLink Visa card integration with instant funding. I always do this in my presentations, guys. I get a little bit ahead of myself, but you can see here, the abilities to manage different types of accounts. And this is the reporting capabilities that I've already, talked about ad nauseum or at length. But, we do have deep knowledge, whereas, larger institutions, and I get it, it's sort of a new rule, right? The new Secure Act for inherited IRAs, and things like that. But we're able to assist in opening and managing those kind of accounts, talking you through some of the rules and regulations, really, really looking at, hey, should we just take the required minimum distribution from this particular account, because those distributions are taxable as income. But then we're able to look at it and say, in a really tax efficient manner, okay, well, how much are you going to spend out of the trust this year? Should we take more? Should we take less? How can we preserve that tax deferred benefit of an IRA for a person with a disability? I've always said that for a person with a disability, a penny saved is really like a dollar earned. It just affects the longevity of their trust. And that's really what we're trying to do. Are all special needs trusts meant to last for the lifetime of the beneficiary? No. They're meant to enhance the quality of the life of the beneficiary. But if we can make it last for that beneficiary's lifetime and provide them with appropriate supports and things like that, that's really what we're shooting for when we look at managing inherited IRAs, managing fund expenses, managing tax exposure, things like that. It's kind of like when you think about, I'm the kind of guy that rolls up the tube of toothpaste all the way to the very end and squeezes every last ounce of it. That's kind of what our investment philosophy is hey, let's get by reducing all these inherent inefficiencies that other portfolio managers may not know is so important for disability trust administration. Let's squeeze as much of that toothpaste out of that tube as we possibly can. And then I think that's it. I think we're done. So if you're ever interested in those fiduciary services, our emails are here. Matthew has our contact information. I'm always happy, or someone on my team is always happy to walk you through the trust platform and some of our investment offerings and some of those more nuanced things, as I'm sure Amanda and Zach and their team is as well.
Yeah, same here. Myself, Zach, we're here to support with any questions you might have about the stable card. And it looks like we have a few minutes too, if there are any questions we can answer that we haven't gotten to in the chat yet.
There's one question I think that was posted, and I think you guys did touch on this, but it says, is TrueLink only available in the context of a trust? And I think it may have been posted prior to you guys going into some more detail, but I'll let you guys follow up.
Yeah, I think, thanks. I appreciate that. No, definitely not. We don't always have to be attached to a trust. That's just, I mean, I think as everyone on the call can tell, that's my area of expertise. So I'll go on and on and on if you let me, talking about trust, but absolutely appropriate for conservatorships, for guardianships, right? As just a multitude of uses. As Amanda said, Kai, our co-founder, kind of as his grandmother was, sort of going down the Alzheimer's road and becoming more and more forgetful, Kai actually made a bet with his mother, who was handling his grandmother's estate, and said, it's 2015 or whatever it was, 2012, I think. There's got to be a financial product where we can protect grandma's estate and still let her go out with her bridge buddies for coffee or for cocktails or things like that. And his mom said, you know what? If you're so smart, Kai, if there is a product like that, wonderful, and please find it for me. If not, you're managing grandma's estate. And Kai found out that there wasn't a product like that, and that's how kind of TrueLink was born. So, any sort of situation where you're dealing with a vulnerable individual, someone who may be susceptible to fraud, lacking capacity, things like that, is a perfect use case. As Amanda said, right? People in recovery, anyone who needs just a little bit extra help, a TrueLink card, while not for everyone, is a fantastic tool.
Another question in there that is, if the card is attached to a trust, who loads the card?
Great question. So it's all controlled by the trustee, and you have to be very, very careful how you set up this card so that it is not counted as a resource or income to the beneficiary. The sort of the two-pronged test for maintaining SSI eligibility for the trust beneficiary. So the card has to be set up as administrator managed. Another way of saying that is trust owned and things like that. And we actually have a fantastic resource setting up the card, how to do it. There it is. How to do it on our website. Here's the guide for family trustees that I actually just made a bunch of edits to, updating the 2025 numbers.
Yeah, I was just gonna show folks actually how to navigate to that guide, which really outlines, like Pete was saying, there's a certain way in which to set up the account to make sure that it's following those specifications. We go through them step by step here. And to get there, you would just go to truelinkfinancial.com. Under resources, we have our compliance guide, and that brings you right here. So feel free to take a look. And while we're on the topic of resources, Brittany, thank you so much for posting. Definitely please contact for any questions regarding Arizona Able, the account, also the card. Definitely feel free to contact Brittany's office at az-able at azdes.gov.
I would also say in that resource center, there's a bunch of blogs. So if you've heard me or Amanda or Zach throw out a bunch of terms that you don't understand, generally we have a lot of blogs that are written by us and experts around the country on our resource center. So things about the Secure Act, things about the ABLE Act, things like that can be very, very helpful. Amy, yeah, we can provide a copy of the presentation.
Yes, and I believe it's just somewhere on YouTube one day.
Yeah.
And there's a question down here, and I don't think it's part of this presentation. It says explain the relationship with S&T and access further. You guys don't have to touch on that. Obviously, I mean, TrueLink has a role in some of that, but I don't think that's. I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's the healthcare cost containment. Yeah. This is where each state gets really nuanced. You'd think that since Social Security and Medicaid are federal programs, that every state would administer them the same. They don't. It's not even close. It's different in all 50 states. So I'd have to do a little bit more digging onto the healthcare cost containment stuff before I could answer any question like that. But again, fantastic resource, Emily and Matthew, right there.
You can reach out to our office for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I agree. Well, it looks like that's all the questions. Thank you all for showing up today and giving the presentation. It's extremely helpful, great information, something that we use all the time with our clients. And so I can't thank you guys enough for spending the time to do this. It's extremely helpful, and I think everybody here got great information from it. So thank you guys again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely meeting you all.
All right, everybody, have a great week.